And good morning. This is Lars Henriksen. I'm with FYR University. Today is November the 17th, 2025. We are meeting today to plan for 2026. And I'm really excited to have you join us either live or if you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. So let's get started. So today is a workshop. So I want you all on the call today to get out a pen and some paper to write on, to take notes, because we're going to plan your business for 2026. And this is whether you're doing this in November for next year, or if you need to revamp in June for a 12-month goal, then this works pretty much any time in the year. But I do want to talk about a 12-month plan for you. So without further ado, let me get to the first slide. So I found over the years that many agents that I've worked with tend to work at what I call a quota level, where they're kind of keeping their license active. They want to sell a few homes, and that's okay. Whatever your goal is, that's up to you to decide. But what I want you to think about is really going into next year, how much money, gross income, before taxes, before expenses, how much money do you need to make annually to stay in the business? So that is a quota dollar amount. So if you're contributing to a household, which most of us are, then you need to figure out how much do you need to pay into your monthly expenses just to keep the lights on. And that's your quota amount. So it could be that you need to make at least $4,000 on average a month in commissions, or actually in dollars to stay in real estate. And if you make any less than that, then you would consider getting a full-time job or a part-time job to pay the bills. So that's your quota dollar amount. So go ahead and write that dollar figure in. So if it's $4,000 a month, then you would need to make at least $48,000 in income. And you based on your tax bracket, would want to up that. So that would be $48,000. Okay. So take a minute and write that dollar figure down. And what that means is that if you made any less than that, then you would consider getting out of the business. Okay. And, some people have more bills than that. Some people need $6,000. That would be $72,000 a year. Now, keep in mind, folks, that this is not your goal, which we'll talk about in a minute. This is just your quota. So the minimum amount that you need to make to pay the bills. Okay. Now, once you have that number written, I want you to think about how much money would you like to make in gross income next year. So starting in January. So January 1st, and that will be your goal. And the goal is something that you will be working towards throughout the year. And in a little bit, we'll break it down into how many families you will need to help in order to reach your goal. So the goal is the amount of money that you want to make to fund your why, your reason. So what is that number? So a lot of agents will use $100,000. Some of you use $200,000. I want you to be very specific, and I want you to write that dollar figure down. Okay. And once you have that, and we're going to take just a couple of minutes to do this, so you can go back, and I'll be sure to get these slides out to you so you have them. I want you to think about, when you look at your quota dollar amount and your goal dollar amount, there's going to be a delta, a difference between the two. So let's say that you wrote $50,000 down for your quota and you were $100,000 for your goal. The difference will be $50,000 in that scenario. So if I asked you, what would you do with that extra $50,000 that you don't need to pay the bills you would like to have? What would you do with that extra money? And I want you to write down 5 very specific things. It could be a vacation to Italy is one of them, or a new car, or a second home, or if you're investing in real estate, maybe a couple of investment properties. It could be to pay college tuition. It could be to pay debt. It could be to start a nonprofit 501c3. It could be a whole host of things. Retirement. If you're self-employed, you probably have a SEP IRA. If you don't have a SEP IRA, you should consider getting one. So those are the things that you will be working towards throughout the year. because for me, that gives you more excitement about your life. And what I want you to think about is this is the kind of business where you can actually do that. You can put on a dream board, for instance, your new car. And if so, how many of you just if you want to unmute yourself and just tell me how many of you told me that you want to have a new car next year?
Me,
Anybody? Who's me? Kim Baggett?
me.
Okay. So Kim, so what kind of a car are you buying in 2026?
Well, I'm going to indulge. I want a Mercedes
A Mercedes
convertible.
Mercedes convertible. Nice. A two-door convertible?
They only make a two-door convertible.
Okay. Well, in Germany they make a six-door convertible.
Well, I'm not in Germany.
I know. So okay, so two-door convertible, and what color is it?
Black
Black.
with
Okay.
tan interior. I already know which one I want.
Okay. Have you test driven it yet?
Yes.
Do you have the brochure?
No.
Okay, so get the brochure, and the brochure will go on your dream board, and then write a date down of when you are buying that new Mercedes. So when do you think that'll be next year?
I haven't set a specific date.
Okay, so this is key, folks. You want to write down a specific date. And if you want to have fun and have skin in the game, then let's say that Kim wants to buy a new Mercedes in August. And she goes into the dealer next month and says, I would like to buy a new Mercedes, this model in August. If I give you a $5,000 non-refundable deposit today, what kind of a discount can I get? Okay, so Kim might be able to get a discounted car, and now she has skin in the game. So if you don't have skin in the game, what is she less likely to do? She's less likely to do the things that you need to do to make up that difference, right? So you can do that with anything. You can do that with vacations. You can do that with houses. You can do that with cars. All right. So have skin in the game. Have your why. Now, I also want to encourage you to share your goals with your loved ones. So I've seen way too many agents not do that, and then they don't have anything, a family to share their success with. So make sure that when you're doing your business planning, that you share your why. What are we going to do with this extra money, with your loved ones, with your spouse, with your kids. And what I used to do is the beginning of every year when I was in sales, I would write down on a piece of paper little stick homes that I would draw. So let's say my goal was 30 homes, and every 5 homes I would sell, as I went to settlement, I would fill in the little box. So just a little, penciled home. And then every 5 homes, I would ask my kids, what would you like to do to celebrate? So every time I'd have a closing, I'd fill in that little box of the house. And then every 5 homes, they knew that we were going to do something fun. So get your spouse involved, get your kids involved. And you could even say, honey, when I sell my 5th home out of 30, I want to celebrate. What would you like to do to celebrate? Is it a weekend in New York? Is it a weekend at the beach? So just think about some things that you can incorporate into your goal setting to make it fun. Because as we all know, this business can be very stressful. And unless you're working towards something, it's a lot easier not to do the things that you need to do to reach your goals. So you guys all have your 5 things. So I'm just curious, what are some things that you are doing with your extra money this year coming up? Go ahead and blurt it out.
House renovation.
Excellent. So have a specific dollar figure, get the estimates, and then plan it. And then you can even pay your contractor up front a little bit, not all of it. You want to make sure the job gets done. So that's good. So home renovation, that's exciting. Okay. Did Jeremy put down a Rickenbacker 4001? You getting a new bass, Jeremy?
I didn't put that down, but Sadowski NYC 5-string would be okay.
Nice. Okay, I like that. Okay, so you've got some things to get excited about. Now, what I want you to do with those 5 or 6 or 7 items, write a dollar amount, how much you need, write a date as to when you want to bring that into your life, share it with your loved ones, and then I really encourage you to put those on a dream board, a vision board, that you can see every single day. So to remind you about why you're doing this. Okay. And folks, trust me, it works. It helps. I couldn't imagine doing this business without a dream board, a vision board, things that I'm working towards. Be very clear. The universe does not distinguish between right and wrong when it comes to your dreams. It'll accept whatever you tell it that you want to draw into your life. And I really believe that works. All right, let's get into some more numbers. So we're going to figure out your value. So if you think about when you ever, so most of us have had jobs where we've been paid an hourly wage or maybe a salary. So when we were deciding on whether or not to choose that job, what did we consider? We considered how much we were going to be paid. So unless you've done this exercise with me, you probably don't know how much you're worth per hour. So what I want you to do is remember, this is the next 12 months beginning January 1st. We're going to figure out how many weeks you will be working in real estate. So the best way to do this is to subtract the number of vacations you would like to take or the number of weeks off that you would like to take in 2026. So most of us take 4 weeks. When I was an agent selling, I would work 90 days, very hard with a schedule, very deliberate. And then that next week, after the 90 days was up, I would take a week off. And what happens in real estate when you're days away from taking a vacation, you get what? You get really busy. So plan to take time off during the year and set some time now that you know you're taking those weeks off. Okay, so let's say that that's 48 weeks. So write down 48, and then how many days a week are you working in real estate? And working in real estate is not searching Facebook. That's not work, in my opinion. Okay, so we'll define work in just a couple of minutes. So how many days a week do you work? Are you working 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week? So write that number down. And then how many hours per day are you working? Again, let's define work. We'll do that in a minute. So how many hours a day do you think you're working in real estate? Are you working 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day? And then what I want you to do is multiply those 3 figures. And if you were working 52 weeks per year, 5 days a week, 8 hours per day, that would be 2,080 hours. Okay. So that's a full-time job with no vacation. And, unfortunately in the United States, a lot of employers, they make you work 52 weeks before they even give you a day off for vacation, which is ridiculous. But I think in Italy, it's KJ, you get like probably like double that, right? You get a lot of vacation. So Europeans have a lot of things right. So what I want you to do is now take the total number of hours and divide that into your income goal. So if your income goal was $100,000 and you were working 2,000 hours total, then you would be working at a $50 per hour rate. Okay? You guys all follow that? And when I do this exercise, what it told me is that either I was working way too much for too little money, or if I actually kept track of my hours, which I ended up doing as an agent, I realized that the hours that I was investing in real estate, I was actually making about $300 an hour. And that shifted my focus so that I would only do activities that would generate a high rate of return. And we'll talk about those in just a minute. Okay. So any questions on how to get your hourly rate? And if you've already done that, if you're a math whiz, then you can tell us what are you worth per hour? So what's your income goal? Not your quota, but your income goal, the higher of those $2 figures, divided by the total number of hours, and that's your hourly rate. So what are you guys worth per hour? Please jump in so that we can continue. Roger? Anybody?
156
I'm
bucks.
125.
Okay, good. 156, 125. Thank you. Okay. So that's what you need to be generating per hour in order to reach your goal. All right. And if you think about 8 hours a day. When do agents really typically start working? A lot of them start working around 10. High producers usually start working around 7, 6:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning. So I want you to think about, as you go into your day, how many hours are you doing non-income producing activities, so that you finally realize that the one that you really need to do the most, we'll talk about, it's leads generation. Okay. Now, here's where this gets really simple. I want you to take your average sales price. So let's say your average sales price is $600,000. Okay. And I'll do this on my phone. And you are getting an average commission of 2.5%. Your average commission is $15,000. Not bad. So if that's your average commission, you divide that into your income goal. So let's say my income goal is $150,000 divided by 15,000. I need to sell 10 homes in order to reach my income goal. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Really simple. Okay. So if your unit goal is 10, and you know going into 2026 that there's 3 families that are already going to use you to buy or sell a house, then you need to meet just 7 more families in order to reach your goal. Okay. Very simple. So I'll give you guys just a minute to figure that out. So your average sales price, multiply it by 2.5% or 0.025. That's your average commission. Take your income goal. Let's say it's $100,000 divided by your average commission check. Let's say it's $10,000. Then you need to sell 10 homes. Okay. And I found when I was an agent that this was the easiest way for me to track my business. Okay. Any questions before we move on? You guys all get this? It's very simple. All right. I love this slide because this is what it's all about. Income generating activities. So there's really only 3 activities that will get you to closing. There's leads generation, there's appointments, which is showing and selling, and then everything else is follow-up. Okay. So, and I love this analogy. If I was starting a company today and I said to all of you, thanks for joining me on this Zoom call, I'm going to have you fill out a timesheet every week. And I want you to write down 3 different activities that I will pay you for. Activity A, B, and C. Every hour you spend doing activity A, I will pay you $1,251 an hour. And for every hour you spend on activity B, I will pay you $15 an hour. And every hour that you spend in activity C, I will pay you $0 per hour. Okay. So $1,251, $15, 0. So KJ, how would you spend your time? Activity A, B, or C?
100% on A.
On A. Why A?
No, I'm greedy.
Because you want the highest return on your time, right? Of course, we all would. So let me break that down in real estate terms. Agents that track their numbers, they know that every hour they spend generating leads, they earn about $1,200 an hour. Okay. And if you think about it, if you spent an hour a day generating leads and you just referred those leads to people all over the country, all over the planet, you could make about $1,200 an hour. Okay. Now you have to have a plan. You have to have the contacts. You have to have the discipline to do it. And I've mapped this out for agents, folks. I know that's how much you generate. When you're spending time, investing time, generating leads, that's what your return is. Okay. For every hour that you spend doing brochures, putting up lock boxes, driving out to Front Royal to put under contract sign writers on properties that end up after home inspection falling apart, so you have to go back and take the sign writer off, that you could pay an assistant $15 an hour to do. Okay. And until you have the wherewithal and the reason to have an assistant, that's really what you're paying yourself to do. That's something that you can pay an assistant. So that's $15 an hour. What do you think activity C is? Apparently last year, according to NAR, and I'm still flabbergasted that about 70% of real estate agents, according to NAR, did not sell a single home all of last year. And what that tells me is that they were doing $0 per hour activities. Okay, they were kidding themselves, thinking that they were somehow, by driving into an office and drinking coffee and listening to war stories all day at a real estate office, that somehow is their definition of work. And unfortunately, as an industry, we have trained way too many agents that that is the job. Okay. And the good news is that you can get free breakfast on Tuesdays at the sales meeting. And if you go to Brokers Opens and get somebody to drive you around, you can get free food. So that is not the job, folks. The job is to generate leads, to go on appointments, and to follow up. So you want to focus on high value activities that generate more business. And it's always going to come down to generating leads. Okay. And then minimize or outsource low value activities. And, using AI to do some of these activities for you, I would encourage you going into 2026, take some classes on AI to figure out how you can increase your dollar per hour by leveraging your resources with AI. Okay. You guys with me? All right. So we've already done the average sales price is your average commission. We've already done your number of units. So here's what I want you to do. And I did this earlier, I think, with Christopher Kilpatrick, that if you, whatever your unit goal is, you have that written down. I want you to think about how many people are in your pipeline going into next year that will use you to buy or sell a house. Okay, so if your goal is 30 homes, my goal is to sell 30 homes in 2026. I'm starting the year off knowing that there's 7 families that I'm helping. So 30 minus 7 is 23. So my goal is 30. I'm blessed to be helping 7 families going into next year. So I need to meet 23 more people. And if you say that to yourself, that becomes an affirmation, a declaration, something that you can focus on. You can then tell your non-conscious mind, I need to meet 23 more people. And you know what? Today you go out, you're in Wegmans, you're talking to somebody. Oh, by the way, I see you're a real estate agent, or I hear you're a real estate agent. I need to sell my house and buy something new. I'm downsizing. Well, there's 2 more transactions. So now my goal is to help 30. Now I'm helping 9. That's 9 sides. I need to meet 21 more people. And I use this dialogue very effectively, incorporating it into my elevator speech. So whenever I was at a networking event, a chamber of commerce event where we were sharing our goals, or maybe with my sphere of influence, I shared that with them. My strategic business partners, I shared my goals with them. So be in the habit of sharing your goals with the right people, especially people in your family. Okay. And remember, it's a numbers game. So Mike Ferry was one of my favorite quotes of all time. You're going to fail even if you're a great real estate agent and you don't play the numbers game. You're not giving yourself enough chances. You have to make the necessary number of contacts. Okay. And we'll break that down in a little bit. And when you get really good at what you're saying, because you're practicing your scripts and dialogue, I practice my scripts and dialogues every single day. I role play with my agents. I'm out walking the dog, doing dialogue. Do it all the time, folks. Get really good at it, because the best dialogue is just to be yourself. And if you have a good script that you've internalized so it doesn't sound like a script, that's where you want to be. So when you get really good at what you're saying, and very importantly, I think you add energy and enthusiasm, folks, you should be excited. If you're in the DC area on this call, this is one of the best markets in the world to be selling real estate. And you should really understand that there's a lot of opportunity every single day to meet people that need your help. Okay. So be enthusiastic about it. Be energetic about it. When you're not feeling it, don't prospect. Okay. You have to have a higher energy level than the people you're talking to. So eventually you won't need to make as many contacts to be successful. And I know agents that started out like a lot of us as new agents. We all started at the same place. And as they built their database and they provided great service, eventually they don't have to make as many contacts because they have so many advocates in their area that are referring business to them. So just keep that in mind. Great quote. All right. So let's talk about how we can get there. So the first thing is I want you to think about your database. And we'll talk in a little bit. I talk a lot about mining your database, leveraging your contacts. So people that are in your sphere of influence. And it could be in your immediate marketplace. It could also be folks that are outside of your area that may have referral sources or people that they will refer to you in your market. So these are people that love you. They want you to be successful. You have to be consistent with your contacts. We have a class recorded on FYR University YouTube channel with that very topic of the 30 touches. So you can pull that up on YouTube. And I have a class recorded, thanks to Kristen Kennord and Dave Kennord in FYR University on YouTube, about 30 touches to your sphere. But you've got to be consistent. You're pre-sold. They already know you. They love you. They want you to be successful. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You're not buying Zillow leads. And, some Zillow leads work and a lot of them don't. It's very low closure rate. The way it works is through the reticular activator. So in our brainstem, in the back of our brain, there's a trigger that goes off when we hear something or see something that resonates with us. It could be our name. It could be the car we drive. So it could be that you just found out you're an expecting mother, and all of a sudden you see all these babies and pregnant women. That's what happens. That's your reticular trigger. So the key, by being consistent with your sphere of influence, guess what? When they think of real estate, they think of Roger. And when they're thinking of Randy, they're thinking of, hey, I wonder if Randy is able to help us buy or sell a house, because you've trained them, you've conditioned them to see you as a real estate professional. And that takes a little bit of time. The good news is that any of you can do that. So I'm going to talk about my favorite dialogues, my opt-in dialogue I'm going to share with you this morning, as well as a different dialogue called Forward, and then incorporate the two. Okay, so I'll go over this with you. There's an introduction. The introduction is just, hey, Anita, it's Lars. And Anita says, hey, Lars. Anita, I hope you're doing well. I don't see you on the camera here, but I see your office. I know you're on the call. So I'm calling to remind you I'm selling real estate at eXp Realty. Really excited about going into next year. And Anita just had a question and a big favor to ask you. And I'll have this written down on the next couple of slides, folks. So the question is, whenever you need help with real estate, or you know somebody that does, who is your resource? Who's your go-to person? Okay, easy question to ask. And most people in your sphere are going to say, oh, Barry, it's you. Okay, haven't talked to you in a while, just making sure. Well, my favor is, if you come across somebody this year that needs help with real estate, would you be comfortable and confident referring them to me? Okay, now that's, for some of you, maybe a tough question to ask, because you don't want to hear the I'm not comfortable. And if they say that, they're probably not people that love you. Okay, the people that love you, that trust you, that like you, that know you, they will be very comfortable referring business to you, because they know how hard a worker you are. They will absolutely keep you in mind. And there's a good chance that anybody in your database will know at least 3 families next year moving. It could be a friend, a neighbor, a relative, somebody they work with. Okay, and I found that 86% of the time, even when I ask strangers, hey, would you mind doing me a favor? Most people say, absolutely. That's just the way we're programmed, folks. So, hey, that's wonderful. Now she's opted in. So just making sure, could be a friend, a neighbor, a relative, somebody you work with. Great. Is it okay if I check back with you next month? I called 100 people in my database once a month, folks. I called 5 people in my sphere every single day. All right. So it's not that hard to do. So if you have 100 people in your database, if you call 5 a day, you're going to touch all 100 of them in 20 days. Great. I'll follow up with you next month. In the meantime, have a happy Thanksgiving. And thank you so much, Anita, for having the confidence in me. I really appreciate it. Every call after that is just a follow-up call. And just checking in from last month. It was great seeing you over the holidays. Just checking to see if you've come across anybody that's thinking about moving. They may say, Lars, I've been so busy, but I'm absolutely going to keep my ears open for you. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. It could be somebody you work with, maybe somebody in your neighborhood's talking about moving. Love to talk to them. Now, Anita, when I call you back next month, what are some things that you and your family could use regarding your real estate needs? And guess what, folks? When I asked that question, I didn't have to rely on somebody to mail me stuff to mail out. God bless Brian Buffini. But you know what? I saved a lot of agents a lot of money for a mail service that they weren't using. So ask your sphere of influence, what are some things that you and your family could use regarding your real estate needs? It could be when interest rates come down again, which they will, good time to refinance. It could be they're doing a home renovation. They need some referrals. Maybe they need new carpeting. Maybe they have a question about their neighbor's fence. So you are the information director. You're the one that is controlling all the contacts. You're the one that is a valued resource when it comes to all things real estate. Okay. So think about asking them that question when you follow up with them. Okay. And if they get chatty, like some of you on the call are very chatty with me, God bless you. Remember, you're working. So if they say, hey, what about that call last night? Was that past interference or not? I'd say, hey, Chris, I'd love to chat with you about it. Can I call you Friday or whatever the week can be better? Okay. You want to demonstrate that you're a professional. Okay. And if you have goals, like my goal was to call 15 people a day, 5 were in my sphere, and then I'll get to the other 10 calls in a little bit. You want to demonstrate to your sphere of influence that this is a business that you're running. And I think way too often your sphere, unfortunately, sees you more as a licensee running a hobby as opposed to running a business. Okay. So here's it all laid out for you. It pretty much hit all the different points, as you can see. So remember, your sphere loves you just the way you are. The most effective script is just being yourself. It's critically important to make sure that they want to help you grow your business. You don't want to be pushy. It's all about asking questions, okay? And when you use each one of these 7 steps into your contacts, you're giving them an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm really not that comfortable. That's just the way I am. You might have a couple of people like that in your database. Most of your friends are going to be very supportive once you ask them. And, and we've all had that feeling of finding out that a friend didn't use us and it's a punch in the gut. I know the feeling. And you know what? Sometimes it was you just weren't following up with them on a regular basis. Okay. It's all about staying in the flow. All right. And that's just another reiteration of the same dialogue. All right. Now, for people that aren't that close to you, what I found is, what do people love talking about? They love talking about their family. A lot of people love talking about their work. A lot of people like to talk about what they do for fun. And, in our business, we can help people with their dreams. That's what you guys do. You really fulfill people's dreams with their housing. That's what's one of the greatest things about our profession is we build communities. So if you don't know them that well, or if you just want to check in with them, this is a great call to make. So if I'm calling Barry, hey, Barry, how's your family doing? How are the grandkids? How's the baseball team going down there in Tennessee, right? So I know Barry. He loves talking about his grandkids. He actually watches like Little League games on his phone. I don't know how they do it. They set up a camera, right? And it lights him up. And I love that. So really I love people. I love the people on this call, and I love hearing about how you're doing. What happens is Barry, let's say he's not an agent. He says, Lars, I'm so glad you called. My family lives down in Tennessee. I'd really like to be closer to them. It's like a 7-hour drive, and you know how 81 is. So we're thinking about making a move. I'm so glad you called. Just because I called and just asked, hey, Barry, just checking in with you to see how your family is doing. Okay. So there's upsizing. So, hey, we just found out we're having number 5 and we're in a 3-bedroom house. We need to move. It could be, you know what? I'm in a 5-bedroom house. I need to downsize. My kids never see me anymore. I'm Mr. Irrelevant now. So you need to downsize. That goes on a lot. It could be somebody in their family just passed away. It could be they're getting married, and instead of having a great big reception, they want to put a down payment on a house. I see a lot of younger folks doing that these days. And then also divorce in Loudoun County, the divorce rate is 63%. And if you're a real estate agent, it's even higher than that. And so there's a lot of opportunities for us to help people just based on family. Occupation, it could be that there's layoffs. It could be they're expanding. It could be they're moving an entire division from San Diego to Northern Virginia. It's a good when you're networking at real estate events all over the country. It's a great way to get referrals. So if you know agents, let's say in Seattle, and they know people that are moving from Seattle to Northern Virginia, then you know what? Just staying in touch with your sphere of influence will allow you to make that connection, because you should be calling people outside of your area for those referrals. Okay, so look for maybe they just got a bonus. They're looking to invest that part of their bonus into an investment property. They're so glad you called. It could be that they want to be closer to where they go every weekend. Let's say they live in Winchester, but they have a boat in Occoquan, Virginia. You know what? It makes sense for us to have a second home in Occoquan. Can you help us? All right. And then D is for dreams. This one, when you're having coffee or maybe you're out having a cocktail with a friend or sitting by the fireplace, That's a good question to ask. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Or as you get older or closer to retirement, where are you going to retire? Where does it make sense? And when you get to be in my age bracket, that's where a lot of the conversation goes to is, where's your next home going to be? Where do you want to settle down and enjoy your retirement years? Okay. So FORD, I think that if you can't make that call, you probably should not be selling residential real estate. Okay. That's the easiest call you'll ever make. And a lot of my agents back during COVID, they called their sphere of influence with these very questions, and they had some of their best years ever. All right, let's go to the next slide. And then I'm going to encourage you to, if you're old school like me, print out your database. So if it's in a spreadsheet, if you have it in a CRM, you can upload it into a CSV file, an Excel spreadsheet, easy to do. And the reason is you can then really work on your database by just adding these letters of the alphabet. So having that in front of you, it's easy to go through. So think about the people in your database that are your best clients, multiple referrals. Those are your A pluses. This comes from Brian Buffini. So A pluses are people that send you multiple referrals. You always have time for them. Those are the people that you see on a regular basis. You may have, they're definitely going to come to your client appreciation party. They're your pop by people. They're all going to get a pie over Thanksgiving. They may be getting Kevin LaRue's famous pumpkin loaf bread during Christmas. So those are your best clients. A's are people that have said, yes, when I have somebody to refer to you, I will definitely do it. So they've declared in their own voice that they will be there to support you, grow your business. Okay. Typically, B's in your database, those will be the people that dominate your database. They need to know more about you and your business in order to be comfortable referring business to you. So those are people that you should put on your drip campaign for your email newsletter. Every one of you should be sending out a robust newsletter with current events going on in your community. And it's a great way to incorporate people into the fold, if you will, into your database, people that you haven't met yet, which we'll talk about as your C's. So B's are people that they need to know more about you to be comfortable. Okay, and that might take some time. Those are good forward people. Some of the people on my B list are people that I call quarterly. Okay, C's are people you haven't met yet. So you want to have a plan in place. So when you meet somebody for the first time, you can very professionally roll them into your database. So the way to do that is if I'm out and I ask somebody, hey, so Chris, what do you do? And Chris says, well, I work for this IT company in Reston. Hey, wonderful. What do you do there? So I'm asking him open-ended questions. Well, the right people will reciprocate. They'll say, well, Lars, what do you do? I said, well, I'm a real estate professional here in Northern Virginia. I help buyers find homes, homes find buyers. I'm just curious, Chris, whenever you need help with real estate, who's your go-to person? And most people will say, I had an agent 5 years ago. I never heard back from them. So I don't even remember their name. And that's usually the number one answer, unless it's, somebody's aunt is an agent. So I would say, well, if you don't have anybody, I would love to be that person. So every month, Chris, I send out a really good newsletter about the local market and about current events. Would you like to receive it? Okay. And right away, I'm going to get his email address and I'm going to put him into my database. Okay. Now he's a C. I'm going to move him up to a B once he starts getting that newsletter. And what I love about the newsletter is that you can add local content and then you can follow up with folks. So let's say that I know that Kristen loves farmers markets in her area. And let's say we live in the same neighborhood or the same area. If I put in an article in my newsletter about farmers markets, the 10 people that I know love going to farmers markets every weekend, I'm going to call them up a few days after I send the newsletter out and say, hey, Kristen, it's Lars, just checking in to see how you guys are doing. By the way, Kristen, when I was making my newsletter this month, I was thinking of you guys because I know how much you love farmers markets. Just curious, which one's your favorite? And let's meet there, especially if they have empanadas, because I love an empanada on a Saturday morning at a farmer's market. Okay, gives you another reason to contact your sphere of influence. Okay, the last category, these are people that they're always Debbie Downers. They're always in a bad mood, and they just bring everybody down, and they're never going to refer business to you. Well, my recommendation, folks, is just delete them from your database. Okay, but I will encourage you to do this. I really don't understand when agents have a database and they're not maximizing it. You need to know that the folks in your database, and based on their behavior, where are they? All right. Now, I added this slide just because I think it's really important to understand that we're all giving the same opportunity every single day. It's just that some of us tend to make more of our day than others. And so this is the story about the $86,400. We all have an account that credits us with 86,400 seconds. That's time. So every morning we start off at 12 a.m. We start off with 86,400 seconds for the day. And it's going to write off whatever you fail to invest to a good purpose. So you want to make sure that you're making deposits in your business, in your relationships, and you know what? Waste time when you've scheduled it. Don't waste time during the day when you should be working. Okay. And then I'll send this slide out, but if you just look at the the different times, like 1 year, the kid who's failed a grade, the mom who gave birth to a premature baby, if you just had one more month, the weekly editor of a weekly newspaper, the 1 hour, the lovers waiting to meet, the person who just missed their airplane connection. So invest your time to get from it the most you can every single day. All right. Just something to think about going into next year. And then here's some activities to plan. So I've already talked about how important it is to generate leads. You know, if you don't have anybody in your pipeline and you're working 8 hours a day, what do you think you should be doing most of the day? You should be prospecting. Okay. So this is pretty simple. If you take your sphere of influence, okay, and you can figure out by having conversations how many people have opted in to helping you grow your business. Okay. Now it could be that if you have 50 people in your sphere, you should be getting about 15 deals a year from those 50 people. Now, how do I get that number? If you want to write this down, 50 times 3 families that they know are moving next year. That's 150 opportunities. I know by tracking business that I should get 10% of that business at a minimum. That's 15 transactions. Okay. If your goal is to help 20 families next year, and you know that you should be able to count on 15 from your sphere, then you need to meet 5 other families moving outside of your database. So I have classes that I'll teach going into next year on all of these topics. One is calling around listings. So we call that 5-5-10, or Wes Foster called it 50-50-100 because he thought a lot bigger than I ever did. So 5-5-10. So just listed calls, under contract calls, just sold calls. For sale by owners, FSBO is the fastest source of a business opportunity. About 80% of them end up listing with an agent. And when they do, they end up making more money for themselves. So for sale by owners, expired and canceled listings, boy, that is a great source, especially right now in most markets. There's a lot of canceled listings, a lot of expired listings. You can incorporate that into your leads generation. Door knocking and farming, okay? And then you should come up with a weekly contact goal. So my goal every day was to contact 15 people. 5 were in my database, 10 were outside of my database. If I had a listing, I would make sure I was marketing around the listing by making just listed, under contract, and just sold calls. I tried to go to every single for sale by owner in my marketplace just to preview the property. I would call 3 or 4 expired or canceled listings every day. And by the way, the end of the month is always a good time to find new expired and canceled listings, because a lot of listing agents will use the last day of any given month to terminate their listing agreement. Okay, so have a weekly contact goal. Previewing. When I was an agent, folks, I previewed 5 homes a day, 5 days a week, 25 a week. So I became a market expert by doing that. And most agents do not do that. So I would physically go into the home. I wouldn't just look at it online, because, sometimes those pictures can be deceiving, especially these days. So I picked one neighborhood I would go preview 5 homes. If I was going to see a for sale by owner and I told them that I was previewing their home, and I wasn't lying to them, I wanted to preview their home, I would go see the 4 homes that were similar to that for sale by owner before I went on the FSBO appointment. And that way I knew the competition better than they did. Okay. So 5 homes. So where are you previewing? Why are you previewing? How often? I think you should do it daily. I think you should do it every afternoon after lunch. Okay. Just go see 5 homes. And if you're on this call, most of you know that I do that every weekend. I see 5 or 6 homes on Saturday, 5 or 6 homes on Sunday, and I use it to meet agents and to keep abreast of the available inventory in the marketplace. Okay. And then how many appointments do you need to go on? My goal was to have 1 appointment a day. If I didn't have an appointment with a qualified buyer or seller, I would do a pop by. I would go by somebody's place of business on the way home, and I would bring a box of cookies. I would just pop by somebody's house. So make the most of your time, folks. This is how this business can be run, and anybody can do this. And then we offer a lot of training and sales meetings. The question is, how committed are you? Never stop learning. Stephen Covey's 7th habit is sharpen the saw. You should never stop learning, folks. You'll never learn everything. The good news is that you don't have to know everything to be successful in this business. You should continually renew that, though. Renew your training. And then I want you to think about, what do you have to do? Well, I'm highly scheduled. I have flexibility built in my schedule, but I have recurring events. When I was an agent, I scheduled time to prospect. I scheduled time to preview. I had times set aside for going on appointments. My goal when I was prospecting was to fill as many of my available appointment slots as possible. Okay. I want you to think about what's important to you. Folks, what's on your dream board? Who is being impacted the most by your success? Those are the people that you want to share your goals with going into 2026. It's critically important, folks. You need support. And we're here to support you as well. And your family should be involved in your planning. Okay, what should you do? I think the answer to that, my answer is create a plan and then follow your plan. So prospecting, previewing, going on qualified appointments, and then everything else is follow up. So, I would check my voicemail and email after I made my calls in the morning, because checking voicemail and email, that usually puts you into a reactive mode as opposed to proactive mode. So think about doing that after you've made your calls. If you want to read a good book about that, read Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Great book. All right. And just a couple of more slides before we run out of time. So, get organized. So monitor when, where, and how you procrastinate, folks. Think about, what does your routine look like? In January, if you're in Northern Virginia, I will be teaching a whole series on ninja selling. And we talk a lot about mindset and the ninja morning and getting your head screwed on straight when you start your day. So think about what is holding you back. And then if it's an activity that you can delegate it to somebody or just get rid of it. Okay. Take some small steps. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So start eliminating some of the things that are holding you back. It could be that your routine is that you turn the TV on in the morning. I hope that's not the case. Some people do that. That's not a good way if you're running a business to start your day. All right. Put a time limit on what's not handled. So you can put a time limit on, my goal is to call 15 people in 1 hour. If every call is about 2 or 3 minutes, unless it's qualifying a lead, that's kind of how long the call can take, whether it's an expired call, a for sale by owner call, calling your sphere of influence. Okay. And then you should get in the habit of touching it once and getting rid of it, and use the 80-20 rule. 80% of the activities result in 20% of our success, and vice versa. So focus on the 20% that will bring you 80% of your results. And then I like this slide, the 7 habits of a highly successful agent. Like I said earlier, always be learning. Take a top producer out to lunch, learn about what is their secret sauce, what made them so successful. Take them out for lunch. Be proactive. You own a real estate business that can result in hundreds of thousands of dollars of income every single year. So you want to demonstrate that by being connected in your community. Be involved. A lot of you are involved in your HOA. Get involved in professional associations like Chamber of Commerce, B&I groups. There's some great B&I groups for lead share out there. I encourage all of you at some point in your career, when you have the bandwidth, to get involved in your local association of realtors. A lot of you on the call are stepping up and doing that. Great way to interact with other agents. Your career absolutely will benefit by doing that. Thank you, Suzanne, for serving. Be tenacious. Don't give up on your first no. All right. Sometimes people just need to know more about you or the services and the value you provide before you give up. Okay. Have passion. One of my kids went to a school that had a poster that said, "Attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching?" Think about that. So you want to be enthusiastic. I love helping people. I'm here to serve. That gives me energy. That gives me enthusiasm. If you take that approach, folks, you cannot go wrong. And then think big. Have some big, wild, crazy goals. Because even if you fall a little bit short, as long as you have that huge goal, you know what? You're moving forward. You're feeling good about it. There's always going to be next year. Let's make 2026 your best year ever. So have some big goals. Learn to negotiate. Take some classes on negotiation. A lot of it is just asking the right questions when you negotiate. And we'll talk in future classes about that. And then be creative. Think outside the box. And I love this slide. When I don't call anyone, I get a no from everyone. So contacts make contracts. And that's all I got for today. So any questions? Good. So who would like to share how many families are you helping in 2026? Buy or sell a house?
27.
Love it. 27. Excellent. Let's get them. Who else?
Lars, I would like to share something. You were talking about like the dream board, okay?
Yes.
And from the Ninja Selling, okay? This is the fridge. And look, this is what we have here.
Oh, good.
With my son. And I told him, when I sell these many units, okay, I'm going to take you to a vacation. So
Good.
we already have it, okay? And if you see, like, it's like the vacation board, okay?
Love it.
So,
yeah. Let's get on it. Let's get some of the squares filled. Call your sphere.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay. Well, folks, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. You can find this recording thanks to the miracle of the World Wide Web and Kristen Kennord. She'll have it posted on FYR University's YouTube channel, so you can go back and take a look at it again. And I am here to help any of you. If you need anything, please reach out to me. And have a wonderful rest of Monday. And if you're in Northern Virginia, on Wednesday the 19th, come by the lodge at Hanson Park for Filling the Cup, Agents Giving Back. And it'll be a great event. So thank you all.
Thank you, Lars. Great class.
Thank you.